welcome to this very special live episode of BYOB. Bring your
Finally.
own books, booze, boys, buddies, whatever starts with B you want to bring with you. My name is Nola Nash. She is
Laura Kemp, and she is
Sarah Jost. Hi.
hello.
Thank you for having me.
hello. We are
Most
so
welcome.
glad
Glad to be
that
have
you
you
are
here.
here. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for joining us. And we are talking about your new book, 5 First Chances, which is really good. I was reading it, and I'm not through with it, which is good because I won't spoil anything for anybody. But I'm about halfway through it now, and really enjoying this. It is an interesting take on having more than one chance at love, and maybe not always. Maybe the outcome's not always, or the journey isn't always the one you planned, which is kind of fun. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right. So I am Sarah Jost. I am a Swiss national. So I was born in Switzerland and I lived there until I was about 24, 25. At which point I moved to the UK. So I wanted to learn English. My first language is French. And as you do, I just thought, why not just, upend my whole life and just move to a different country and learn English? That's what I did.
That's what we did.
So I ended up in a school being a French assistant just for 1 year. And then I trained to be a teacher, and kind of 1 year turns into 2 and 3, 4, etc. So I've been there for 15 years now, for a long time.
It's a long time.
And I, met a boy, married him as well, kind of bought a house, got a dog, and that's it. I'm kind of settled. I always loved writing, so I wrote as a teenager in French to start with, and then when I moved to the UK, it took me a few years to learn English. And eventually I kind of just wanted to have a go at writing novels in my new language. So I had a go, wrote a couple of really terrible ones, really awful, that nobody is ever going to see.
We all have those as novels in our past. No, we just don't want it.
We have those too.
Exactly. That secret folder on your computer that you're
Exactly.
not touch.
So bad.
Exactly. And eventually the third novel turned into what is now 5 First Chances. So that just came out last week in the US.
Oh, that's exciting.
It is wonderful. And
much. Hi.
Reading in a different language is one thing. Writing in a different language is something entirely, especially writing something that you've put out there for other people to read. And honestly, I mean, I knew the background, a little bit of your background when I read it. But had I not known that you were writing in your second language, I wouldn't have guessed that, because it's beautiful. It's flawless. I mean, wow, that was, job well done.
Thank you for saying that. Obviously there's, as you both know, there's a lot of editing that's gone into the final product. But I think that the beauty of doing this in a second language is that I felt there was no pressure, no expectations. I didn't kind of need to prove myself to anyone. And I was just doing it kind of secretly for myself to begin with. And it took me years to kind of have the confidence to show it to people. But once the positive feedback starts coming, it kind of just makes you want to keep getting better at it, I think, and to learn further. So that was a great experience.
Did you feel kind of like off the hook because you were writing in maybe in your second language, and maybe you were free to be a little more not as worried about that's interesting.
I think so. And I think it really allowed me to think, strip everything back and just think about what I really love reading, and to find out that I loved reading more commercially, that maybe I had allowed myself to in French. I was kind of, I studied French at uni, and I kind of ended up reading a lot of Victor Hugo and all those kind of 19th century classics, and thinking about what it needs to be like.
2,000 pages.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. Les Mis, 1,000 pages.
Massive.
So I think that really helped me to think, what do I actually really want to pick up for myself when nobody's looking, nobody's asking me what I'm reading, and discovered just a wealth of literature that is equally as interesting and as deep. But it really, allowed me to explore that, and that's what I ended up writing, I think.
Now, your main character in 5 First Chances, Lou, she has come from Switzerland. she is a French teacher, so clearly there's a lot of in Louise, and she's a lot of fun. I love her. She's just so socially awkward. She's doubting herself about everything that she does. The funny thing is that she just blurts out in the silence. It's like, "Oh my god, no, don't say that." So, is there a little bit, I mean, there's that part of it that's perhaps a little biographical on your part. How much of Louise is Sarah?
Well, I mean, they say kind of write what you know, and I talked about my 2 novels in my drawers, and I think those ones were the ones that I kind of wrote thinking about what I was supposed to be writing and trying to write as somebody else almost. And I think, for this one, I'm just going to go back and just write what I want to read, but also something that is a bit more authentic to me. I mean, Louise isn't me. I think I kind of gave her my background because it came naturally to me, and I was quite interested in the feeling of displacement and awkwardness that she feels being between 2 different places, 2 different languages. But, I can't travel back in time, unfortunately. Sorry for the disclosure. It's not possible. And I think she's probably just a kind of exacerbated side of myself, that kind of awkward one, the side of maybe a lot of us who kind of lie down at night and think back of that one thing we said in 2008 that we wish we hadn't said. And I think, I've got that side to me, and I just kind of brought it up to life in her.
That's part of what makes her so relatable too, and that you're rooting for her, for things to work out. If not this chance, then hopefully the next chance, and there's going to be 5. So, and as I'm reading the first one and now the second one, and I'm going, this isn't going to work. What's going to happen? We know this doesn't work. So it's kind of fun knowing that the first 4, not happening. And then, so it's like, then you kind of build up to that anticipation of the 5th one. So, there's another one coming, and you just really hope that's the one. Of course, I haven't finished it, so I don't know. Maybe it doesn't ever work out for her, but fingers crossed. I hope that it does.
Is that kind of yearning for a reset?
Oh, so it's kind of a twist on Groundhog's Day, a little bit like that. They wake up, and how are we going to make this day different? Yeah.
And I love how you just simply say, and we go back. I love it. It's and we go back. It's like, so all of a sudden, like, there's no mechanics in how this actually happens. You don't really know like what's causing her to go back. It's like she gets to this just emotional point where, and then all of a sudden, and now we're back. We're starting over again.
Yeah, and she's very anxious, and I don't use the word anxiety lightly. I think she genuinely suffers from anxiety as a mental health condition that kind of gets her trapped in time. She's kind of petrified by regrets about the past and worries about the future, and she kind of gets trapped in that place, those kind of specific 2 years. But for me, that's exactly how I saw it. It was a bit of an anxiety attack / time seizure, that when things bubble up too much, they're just going to flow over, and that's when she's sent back. So there's no kind of mechanics of time travel. There's no science behind it. It's more like a cognitive thing happening for her.
I love when she finds herself in that new spot, the way that she has to figure it out. It's almost like the second time it happens, she's more going, wait a minute. Almost like she starts to, I know this place. Kind of recognize that person, but not met them before. Like I love the build up as this happens to her. It's an interesting thing to watch her find herself in that spot again. Because I always wondered how that happened to people. If that was a possibility and you could go back in time, do you go back with full recollection of everything that you did, and like Groundhog Day, where he's kind of going, I've done this before? Or, for her, it's kind of like vaguely familiar, which I kind of like. I like that she's got to sort it out. It's not like she's like jumping in going, okay, here we go, round 2. She has that moment of having to sort through it all. And I like that.
Is it difficult
what were you gonna ask, Laura?
I was just asking because Nola and I have both written dual timeline books. So we've done time travel type stuff now. And I find it technically difficult to write a book about time travel because, as you know, everything that she does affects now the future or the past. Do you find it difficult technically to write that way? Did you find yourself keeping notes and keeping track of everything, or was it more of that like organic experience that you were talking about before?
Yeah, it was a bit of a mixture of both. I think what I really admire those books where, as you say, the kind of future affects the past, and then things have changed when you go back. I mean, I couldn't keep tracks of that. I don't think my brain works that way. So hence the way that it came to me naturally was over 2 years, because again, you don't have to do the same day, and that would be a nightmare to kind of do the same day over and over again for me and make it, keep it fresh and different. I thought, over 2 years, she's got a bit more scope for kind of mistakes and learning. And I kept the significant dates over the 2 years so that gave me a bit of a structure to kind of play with a little bit and to think about what would be different this time around. And the things that would be different came from the fact that she is approaching every time loop with a different mindset. And I think that was quite interesting to explore. But yeah, to answer your question, I had a massive spreadsheet with basically being like, okay, this time in this place, this happens, but then the next time it's different.
So you definitely were a plotter.
Yeah, I had a planner.
We like to talk about that sometimes.
Yeah, I'm a terrible planner. I kind of always want to plan, and then I always end up not following the plan, basically.
So you're both.
That's me.
You plot and you default the pants.
I have a general plan though. Yeah. I don't have a massive spreadsheet. Maybe I need one because I go way off my own track all the time. I set it all out and then I get about halfway. No, we're going over here now.
Forget about that. Yeah, no, I understand that. Where's the fun, right? You have to just
gotta let the story steer itself.
About what the book's about? Did you get a synopsis about it? It's kind of.
I mean, I know what it is because I was reading it, but you should probably tell them.
Okay, that really difficult question that all writers kind of dread. 2 years or 3 years, 4 years writing. And okay, so 5 First Chances is a time loop love story that is about romantic love, but love in all its forms and sizes and shapes as well. And it's about Lou, as we said, Louise, who is a Swiss expat living in the UK. It starts at a funeral of a friend, and she's feeling really kind of disconnected. She doesn't really know that person. She's kind of, estranged from her one friend that she made in the UK, feeling like her life is going nowhere, regretting missing a chance that she had to potentially get back with an ex back in Switzerland. And then at her lowest, she has a time seizure that sends her back in time. And then she finds herself 2 years ago with very, very vague deja vu and the opportunity to change her life. So I would say that is the synopsis for you.
And that's a very
good. We all like to go back and change our lives if we could.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
We've got some viewers popping on. I just want to remind them we are live. So if you've got comments and questions for Sarah that you want to post for us, just post them in the comments. And as I see them, I'll try to pop those in, and we'll get some of those on the screen. So, I know that y'all aren't used to us doing those live comments anymore. So putting that reminder out there. If you've got something you want to say or ask,
get everybody back into the live.
I know we've got to get everyone back into the routine of asking the questions.
We're all teachers. We know how that is, right? You gotta transition the kids. So sorry.
Restate the instructions all the time. Now, Sarah, you grew up around Lake Geneva, around Montreux, correct?
Yeah, correct.
I have been to Montreux, which was like when I read that, like, oh my gosh.
So cool.
Not long before I found out we were going to be interviewing you, some conversation had come up about some time that I had been to Europe and about Chillon, about the castle.
Oh, the castle, of course. Every school trip I ever took.
Every school trip and every tourist to that part of Switzerland is going to go to the Chateau de Chillon. And it is a remarkable place. It is really neat. And of course, coming from the United States where we don't have anything that old, we do like to explore the castles and get a little geeky about, oh my gosh, this is so old. But some of my favorite times in Switzerland, and I went to both Montreux and Lucerne, and loved them both. We were on the French side and then the German side, which was kind of an interesting switch to be in the same country and changing primary language. But everyone was so nice. And one of the things that I really loved, and you touched on her coming into England and noticing things like the fast food bags kind of on the side of the road and some of the kind of the things that were more like urban, big city kind of things. But one of the things about Switzerland, and one of the reasons why I can imagine that you put that in there, is it was spotless. Like there was not a dust grain out of place when we were there. It is one of the most pristinely beautiful, just naturally beautiful, but also just so well kept. I mean, truly everyone there just really
Yeah,
cares about their own environment, their own home, their own place, and
yeah.
it was spectacular. Do you miss that? Do you get to go back to that very often? I mean, I know you don't do the school trips to Xi'an anymore, but
Yeah. Um, well, it's funny you say that because I went back a couple of weeks ago just to visit my family, and I took my husband with me. And he'd been there before, but we stayed in Lausanne, so by the Lake of Geneva, the kind of bigger city apart from Geneva there, with my sister. And then in the morning, we kind of were just walking from one place to the next. And my husband said, "Oh, has it been raining?" Because the floor was completely wet. And I said, "No, it hasn't been raining. It's just the cleaning." And you can see like the guys just kind of coming and just sweeping everything and just cleaning, 7 a.m. That's what you do. You're just going to keep the place, as you said, spotless. And I think it's something you don't really notice when you live there until you move
Or somewhere
abroad.
else.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there are sides of England that I find, still harder to kind of get used to, the kind of, I don't know, the bad plumbing, stuff like that. But this is not Swiss. Come on.
Yes.
But
And it's,
also,
800 years old. It's really old
yeah,
plumbing, old buildings. They're
yeah,
still there, the same ones.
absolutely. But it's also there's so many places that are really magical here. I lived in Oxford for a year as well, and kind of
Oh,
I don't
that's
know if you've
beautiful.
been, but that is just gorgeous. And everywhere you walk, it's kind of a postcard, and you're like, wow, it's history. It's kind of all those great writers who lived there,
Yes.
and drank a pint down the pub there and talked to their friends and made up wrote Alice in Wonderland and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a country that is so full of that kind of creative energy as well, that I really, and so full of possibilities, and that comes with a certain maybe messiness, but I think I'm okay with that. When the other side is the possibilities and the dreams. I think that's great.
Did it kind of inspire you to write when being in the UK, being around?
Yeah, I think it definitely did. And I started writing shortly after my year in Oxford.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say it's kind of just knowing that, in Switzerland, we've got about a bit more than 1 million people speaking French. So you're kind of, the people who could potentially pick up and read your book, the number is kind of tiny. So the literature is great there and it's really good quality, but it's quite an intimate thing that doesn't really export that well. So I think suddenly being here and being like, I could actually submit to somebody in London and I could find an agent. I mean, yeah, that never happens in Switzerland. And maybe get published and get distributed. It was just suddenly everything was so open. I think that really inspired me to just throw my hat in the ring and see what would happen.
And you pick
And
such a
look what
universal
happened.
subject. I mean, and that's
Sorry?
the great thing too. It's a universal subject. So you've got, it doesn't matter where in the world you are. I mean, whether it's Switzerland, the UK, over here in America, we've all experienced that sense of regret, that sense of wanting to go back and do it again.
Mm.
And the possibility of doing that and actually watching someone do those things, and would I get it right if I had another chance?
Yeah.
And
And how would
you always think if I had one more chance to do it right, I'd get
Yeah.
it. I'd do it right this time. I love
Yeah.
the idea that we've got 5. Like, nope. Because the more I read it, the more like when she got to the end of the second chance, and I was like, oh, see, I totally probably would have done that. I would have screwed that up, and I would be right back to regretting it again. So the fact that you picked something that we all experience at some point in our lives, every person, and this is not just a male or female thing. I mean, your main character is female, but we've all done it. We've all done it. We've all had that moment that, like you said, laying up awake at night, reliving a moment from 1980, that in the shower going, I cannot believe I said that to that person.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. We've just so been
I
there.
think that's
But it does make
what's
me
so
think, would I
interesting.
get it right if I could do it again?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think in those moments that you're saying that we're reliving the moment, it's almost like time travel, isn't it? You kind of literally feeling
It is.
physically like you're there. You're feeling the cringe and you're feeling the sweat and all of that. So I think I
You
just
do
wanted to
relive it.
explore that a little bit, like that ability to what if it actually came true, and that ability to relive that, to kind of think yourself into that moment. Our brains can do such amazing things. Why not travel back
Well, I
in
think
time?
it's interesting too, because if she does change the past, then it'll change who she is in the
Mm.
future. It'll
And I
change who
think
she is.
that's one of the main things I wanted to show in that book. It's a book, I think, hopefully with a very strong character arc. And I think some people have loved Louise from the start, but some people loved her more because they followed her through that journey from being a very flawed and kind of scared and worried individual struggling to connect and saying the wrong things to finding her place in the world and her confidence, and through that being more open to other people. And I think it's also about, a lot of our regrets, I think, are mainly based on relationships, isn't it? It's kind of, if I had,
Yeah,
For sure.
dealt with that person differently or showed up for him or her, or if I had kind of not said that thing or not made that decision. So I think I wanted to show as well that she learns to notice the people who are there that she didn't notice at first, and kind of learns to show up for them as well.
Yeah, sure.
and
You
I
go
love
forward
too
being
that
more present.
she feels like, yeah, to be more present, and some of
In
it
the
too
moment,
is
not thinking.
actually owning her own feelings about things too,
Mm,
because she also kind of learns, I don't have to go along with what other people choose for me because they are trying to be helpful. If it doesn't feel right to me, I don't need to do that, which is something she learns along the way. And it's
mm,
something that we all kind of, through our own experiences over time, hopefully we're kind of growing into that as well. That,
yeah.
okay, trust your gut, trust yourself. Something about this isn't right. Something about that person isn't right. What do we do with that when we feel that way is the other
Mm,
thing. We don't always trust it. We don't always act on it. Sometimes we feel that way, but we don't trust ourselves. We don't give ourselves enough credit.
mm,
And I think at the very beginning of the book, that's exactly where she is. She may know that something's not right. She knows immediately after she says something truly dumb that, oh God, that was dumb, kind of wishing she could gobble the words back up again. But she does. Oh, look, Lisa's here. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining us. I
Hey,
love being able
Lisa,
to
we're
pop the
live.
comments up there. We're live. We have people popping in with the comments. We've had people kind of coming and going. I can watch the view count, but Lisa got bold. Put the comment in there. Way to go, girl.
Oh, bold.
Go bold. Put the comments in.
Good afternoon.
But I love that she changes as she goes, and I think we've all had those moments. And I think you're right. I think she is a different person each time. But that's a really cool thing too, because that idea of starting over again, what if you didn't change? I mean, would there ever be a way to fix it, to do it the way that you wanted to do
Yeah.
it, if you don't actually learn from the time before and are able to take it with you? So I love giving her just that little bit of herself, and that knowledge and that growth each time is a lot of fun to watch her.
And that's what you were talking about the gut feeling, isn't it? That's what she brings with her. She brings that gut feeling, that instinct that becomes sharper and sharper and sharper throughout the time loops. So yeah.
It's interesting
that
because usually
intentionality.
people get that through like their different experience, just going through their lives in just a regular way. And she gets to experience it 5 different times. So she should be, very sharpened by the end
Yeah.
of her experiences. But it's kind of the same path that we all take as we go through life. We learn and we grow, and she
Yeah.
just gets 5 chances to do it within the same time period. That's such an interesting concept. How did you come up with it? Maybe
I love
you've
the 2
explained.
years. The 2 years part. I
Yeah.
love that. Just using those same 2 years over
Yeah.
and over again.
So effectively, she lives about 10 years in the book. So that ends up in quite a lot of, luckily, wisdom in the end. So I think she's grown by 10 years effectively, but only 2 years in her actual kind of life years. How I came up with the concept, I'm not really sure. I think it's funny because a lot of people are much more familiar than me with the concept of a kind of time loop romance. And I think a lot of people kind of bring their expectation of the genre and the trope to the book, and ask the questions, why is she not able to remember it? Or why is it over 2 years? And why is it so different? But I just didn't really think about it. I knew Groundhog Day. I had read some kind of books playing on the trope a little bit about the future, like in 5 years, for example, but not really proper kind of time loop books. So I just did it in the way that came naturally to me.
Very organic.
I don't know.
It's a pantster thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
I
there
just
you go.
kind of,
That wasn't planned. You just did it, and
yeah.
that's
Started
I just
right
set up
there
to
you
write
go.
it, and I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if the book started at a funeral, and that was the
Yeah.
bit where she goes
I
do
do like
Those are the
that.
best. Yeah.
And how awkward are we at funerals anyway? I mean, even if we know the person, like, you don't know what to say to people, you don't know what's gonna sound stupid,
Mm,
you don't wanna say the wrong thing, you don't wanna make somebody
mm,
start crying again, you wanna make them feel better, but you don't know, if I say anything at all, is that gonna be worse? And you do second guess stuff. So to
Yeah.
mm,
establish
Great.
her as kind of this
Awkward and social
outsider,
moment.
this socially awkward, this not knowing what to say in the moment
mm.
character, that was the perfect place to put her because we've all felt that way. We've all felt that
Yes.
way in that moment, especially if we've had to go
Yeah.
to a funeral of a distant relative, someone we didn't know very well,
Mm,
and we're just going to be supportive, but we don't know like
yeah.
what to say. I've been there. I've been there, and it is awkward, and I'm no good at
Mm,
it. But Laura and I have both written books that do not follow, a genre rule by
mm.
any means, and we like to do our own thing with our books. And we talk about that all the time. That no one knows what shelf to put our books on because they don't follow any rules.
I
But we
know.
write what we want to write, And if we
Mm,
had sat and looked at the trope and kind of broke down, this is what it should look like, especially since both of us have done time travel, and both of our time travel are very different. And
mm.
so I don't know that there actually is you can't say that there's an only way to do it. We can't
There's
all
no
Proper
right
be
way,
Doctor
right?
Who. We can't
Mm,
all be Outlander. We're not going to all be those things. We're going to do our own thing, and it's the
Mhm.
story that we want to tell. And I love that you were just like, I don't know, this is what I want to do, and it
The
works. It
story of your
totally
yeah.
works.
That's what I tell my students when I give my book talk. I always say, write the story of your heart,
Mm,
whatever that is, because they worry about, can I write this? Can I write that? What should I do? I just write the story of your heart and it'll feel right. Like you said, organic and authentic. And yeah, and then you can put it out in the world and be proud of it and want to promote it and want people to read it. You can't do that if you're not writing the story of your heart, I don't think.
that's true. I don't think it would ever feel right when you're writing it, would it?
Mhm.
You wouldn't
No.
have those moments where you feel, the flow and connected, which are few and far between because it's hard. But
Mhm.
when it happens, you just kind of feel everything feels right, and there's
Yes.
no other feeling like that.
Oh, it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
Mm,
That's for
Lisa
sure.
likes your mantra
Thank
there.
you,
mm,
Lisa.
All about the mantra.
Really?
That's a good one. I mean, that's good advice. That's great advice for anybody, whether it's your students, whether it's anyone starting out, whether it's even somebody who has several books under their belt and they're wanting to maybe try something new. If that's the story of your heart,
mm,
then that's the one you write. That's your passion project. And I think we all, when we sit down to those passion projects, there's so much of ourselves in it, whether it's as a character. I mean, those little bits of Louise that are you that show up, or if it's just simply this was the story my heart wanted to tell, and I
mm.
don't appear in it at all, but it's so much of just my own energy that I poured into it. I think that's often our best work. And
It
even
is.
if it's something that may not be our most successful work, that's always the work that we feel like we have spent good
Mhm.
time writing.
Mm,
It's the
And
success of
sometimes
our
it's
yeah,
heart.
all about just feeling good about
Not
it.
money.
Yeah, yeah, it's
yeah.
it's about what your heart wanted to say. It's not
Mhm.
about what the monetary return is. And so much of what we write, none of us sat down to write and said, you know what, I'm gonna write and sell a whole lot of books, and make a whole lot of money. I mean, if we
Mm.
did that, that's just
Good
I mean,
luck.
clearly we're doing it wrong if
Going
that's what we
there.
said.
We're still teaching.
Yeah,
We're doing
and I
Yeah,
think
we're
that
still teaching.
yeah, yeah.
that money rolling in. Come on.
Mm. And I think that would be the book that you would always regret not doing, to go back to
Mhm.
the themes of my own book.
Yeah.
That would be your what if book. So you might as
Yeah.
well write it, isn't
Exactly.
it?
May as well write it.
Mm.
That's right.
Put it out
I
there.
think that's very good advice too. It's the one you would regret not actually doing. It's always the
Yeah.
one in
Mhm.
the back of your head. And I think if that book is going to haunt you like that, then let's get it on the page. Let's get it on the
Yeah.
page. And hopefully it will resonate with other people like it resonates with the writer. So it's all good time well spent when you put that kind of passion into a project, and you putting that kind of passion into a project in a second language, doing it so
Yeah.
flawlessly. I mean, it is just brilliant. I mean, it's been a very fun read. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I can't wait to see how it ends. And
Thank you
I
so much. I
encourage
can't
everybody
wait
to
to
pick
hear
it
what you
up.
think once you get to the
Oh,
end.
I know. I'm really excited about it. I'm really enjoying this book. There's so much heart in it, and there's so many cringy moments where you're like, oh God, I totally would have done that. That's like I would have done that. I'm
Mm.
feeling this book in ways. I'm ashamed to say I am that awkward person. I will say those things. Laura knows she's done shows with me enough that she's like, oh God, what did you just say? She's had to dig me out of many a hole on this show and other places. So she knows.
Real or is real.
Yeah, Nola, no. Don't say that to the
No,
person.
you are perfect, Nola. Yes. Perfect.
I am not. However, this has been a perfectly fun interview with you, Sarah Jost. Thank you
It's great.
so much for joining us. Can you let the
Yeah.
folks know where they can find you, website, socials, the places that they can find you and your fabulous book so they can go out and get it too?
Yeah, so 5 First Chances, available in all good kind of bookshops, online or otherwise. And I am available on social media, so I use mainly Twitter and Instagram. Twitter is at Swiss Sarah UK. That was a
I'm
few
going to
years ago.
follow you.
I love it.
Right now.
And Instagram is Sarah Jost _writes. So
Hey,
yeah,
I'm going to
looking
follow you
forward to
both.
connecting.
I know. I've kind of bailed out of Twitter, but I never used it anyway. I was bad at Twitter. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to make Twitter work for me.
That's so
I just got
different.
I got
Yeah.
lost in the abyss. And so, but
Yeah, really.
Instagram's my jam.
Yeah. Well,
Even
you've
though
got
I've
a
had to
choice,
create a
you know,
second account, but
pick your one.
yes, absolutely. Well, I will be tracking you down on that because I want to follow your journey. This has been such a good time talking to you. Thank you
Oh, thank you
so
so
much.
much.
I know the time
Just
change and
followed.
everything for you. This has got to be a wonky time for you, and I appreciate you being flexible with
Oh,
us
yes. Thank
on the
you. Thank
time
you.
and joining us
Oh,
as
thank you
well.
so much for having me. It was great
Most
talking
welcome.
to you.
So
Thank
nice
you.
to meet
Well,
you.
thank you so much. Hold tight for just a second. I'm going to play our outro, and then we will say our final goodbyes to you here in just a second. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on BYOB Live this time on Others on the Air Global Radio Network. This has been a copywritten production.